The red dust of Kepler 442c swirled around Jake Morrison's boots as he walked toward the crashed pod. His cargo ship Wanderer sat behind him like a metal mountain against the orange sky. Jake had been a space trader for 15 years and he had seen many strange things. But this was different. The escape pod was small and silver. It had crashed into the rocky ground so hard that it made a deep hole. Black smoke came from its broken parts. Jake could hear a soft beeping sound from inside. His heart beat faster as he got closer. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Lisa Parker's voice came through his radio. She was his ship's engineer and always worried about danger. "The scanner shows life signs, but we don't know what's in there." Jake stopped at the pod's door. It was cracked open just enough for him to see inside. "Someone needs help, Lisa. That's all I need to know." He pulled the door open with a loud metal screech. Inside the small space, he saw her. She was curled up in the corner like a scared animal. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the dark. She had large, dark eyes that looked at him with pure terror. She was small, maybe the size of a human teenager. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Dark purple blood covered her left arm. When she saw Jake, she made a sound like singing mixed with crying. Her skin began to flash with bright colors, red, yellow, orange. Jake had never seen anything like it. She was clearly not human, but she was hurt and afraid. "Hey, it's okay," Jake said softly. He held up his hands to show he had no weapons. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien girl pressed herself harder against the wall. The colors on her skin flashed faster. She spoke in a language that sounded like music, but Jake could hear the fear in her voice. Jake took a small step forward. "My name is Jake Morrison. I want to help you." She tilted her head and listened to his words. The flashing colors on her skin slowed down a little. She spoke again in her musical language, pointing at her wounded arm. "Dr. Rodriguez to the landing site," Jake said into his radio. "Bring the medical kit. We have an injured person." "Person?" came the doctor's voice. "Captain, what did you find?" "Just bring the kit, Sam." Jake looked around the inside of the pod. Everything was broken. The walls had strange symbols that glowed weakly. In one corner, he saw what looked like family pictures. They showed the girl with other aliens who looked like her. They were all smiling in the pictures. Jake felt sad when he realized the girl might be alone now. Dr. Sam Rodriguez arrived 10 minutes later. He was a good doctor who had fixed many injuries on Jake's crew. When he saw the alien girl, his eyes went wide. "Captain, that's Illyrian," Sam whispered. "I read about them in medical school. They're from the Andromeda sector. Very peaceful people. Can you help her?" Jake asked. Sam nodded and slowly approached the girl with his medical scanner. She watched him carefully but didn't try to run. The scanner beeped as it checked her injuries. "Broken arm, cuts on her legs, and she's very weak," Sam reported. "But I can treat her injuries. The question is, should we?" "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Captain, if this is Illyrian, then the Korthak Empire is probably looking for her. They hunt Lyrians for their biolite properties. If they find her on our ship..." Jake looked at the frightened girl. She was so young and alone. Her family in the pictures would never hold her again. The idea of leaving her here to die or letting the Korthak find her made Jake angry. "We're taking her with us," Jake decided. "Captain," Lisa's voice came through the radio. "I'm picking up 3 ships on long-range sensors. They're heading this way fast. The computer says they're Korthak vessels." Jake's blood went cold. The Korthak Empire was known across the galaxy for being cruel and violent. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who got in their way. If they were coming here, it was for the girl. "How long until they arrive?" Jake asked. 20 minutes, maybe less." Jake looked at the alien girl again. She seemed to understand that something was wrong. Her skin flashed with worried yellow colors. She spoke in her musical language, and Jake wished he could understand her. "Sam, can you move her?" Jake asked. "Yes, but carefully. Her arm needs to be set properly. Do it on the ship. We're leaving now." Jake gently reached toward the girl. She pulled back at first, but then she looked into his eyes. Something passed between them, an understanding. She was alone and scared, and he was offering help. Slowly, she reached out with her good arm. Jake carefully helped her stand. She was lighter than he expected. As they walked toward his ship, she kept looking at him with those large, dark eyes. Her skin still glowed softly, but the colors were calmer now. "What's your name?" Jake asked, knowing she wouldn't understand. She spoke a word that sounded like wind chimes. "Zira," she said, pointing to herself. "Zira," Jake repeated. The girl smiled for the first time since he found her. It was a beautiful smile that made her whole face light up. As they reached the Wanderer, Jake made a promise to himself and to her. He would protect this frightened alien girl. He didn't know what it would cost him, but he knew it was the right thing to do. The ship's engines roared to life as the Korthak vessels got closer. Jake carried Zira to the medical bay, where Sam was already preparing to treat her wounds. As the Wanderer lifted off from the planet's surface, Jake looked down at the crashed pod getting smaller below them. "Don't worry, Zira," he said quietly. "I'll look after you." She didn't understand his words, but somehow she seemed to understand his meaning. Her skin glowed with soft, peaceful blue light as the ship jumped into space, carrying them both toward an uncertain future. 3 days had passed since Jake found Zira in the crashed pod. The Wanderer was now traveling through empty space between star systems. Jake wanted to stay far away from any planets where the Korthak might look for them. Zira sat in the ship's small dining room, carefully eating soup that Dr. Rodriguez had made for her. Her broken arm was now in a white cast and her other wounds were healing well, but Jake could see she was still scared. Every time someone walked into the room, her skin would flash with nervous yellow colors. "She's been through something terrible," Sam told Jake as they watched her from the doorway. The scanner showed old scars on her body. This wasn't the first time someone hurt her. Jake felt angry when he heard this. Zira looked so young and innocent. The idea that anyone would want to harm her made no sense to him. "Captain," Kate Sullivan said as she joined them. Kate was the ship's security officer, a tough woman who had fought in 3 different wars. "We need to talk about what we're doing here." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "I mean, we're carrying an alien that half the galaxy wants to capture. The Korthak have put out a reward notice. 10 million credits for any Lyrian, dead or alive. Every bounty hunter and pirate in known space will be looking for her." Jake looked at Zira again. She was trying to use a spoon with her good hand, but it was hard for her. Some soup spilled on the table and she made a soft, upset sound. "She's just a kid, Kate," Jake said. "A kid worth 10 million credits. And if the wrong people find us with her, then we make sure the wrong people don't find us." Kate shook her head. "Captain, I've been with you for 5 years. You've always made smart choices. But this could get us all killed." Before Jake could answer, they heard Zira make a new sound. She was pointing at the spoon on the floor and saying something in her musical language. She looked upset and embarrassed. Without thinking, Jake walked over to her. He picked up the spoon and got her a new one from the kitchen. When he handed it to her, she looked up at him with those big dark eyes and spoke softly. "I think she's saying thank you," Lisa said. The engineer had been watching from the other doorway. "Look at her skin colors. They're different from when she's scared." It was true. Instead of the nervous yellow, Zira's skin was glowing with soft green and blue colors. She seemed calmer around Jake than anyone else on the ship. Over the next few days, Jake started spending more time with Zira. He would sit with her during meals and try to teach her English words. He would point at things and say their names. "Spoon," he would say, holding up the eating tool. "Spoon." Zira would repeat the word, but her voice made it sound like singing. "Spoon," she would say, and her skin would glow with happy blue colors. She was a fast learner. Within a week, she knew words like water, food, ship, and friend. When she said friend and pointed at Jake, her whole body would light up with warm colors. But Jake was learning things too. He discovered that Zira's skin colors showed her feelings. Red meant fear or anger. Yellow meant worry or confusion. Blue and green meant she was happy or calm. Purple meant she was sad, and when she was very sad, her skin would barely glow at all. One evening, Jake found Zira sitting alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Her skin was glowing with deep purple colors, and he could see she was crying. The tears on her face looked like tiny diamonds. "Hey," Jake said softly as he sat down next to her. "What's wrong?" Zira looked at him and spoke in her own language. Even though Jake couldn't understand the words, he could hear the sadness in her voice. She pointed at the stars and then touched her chest over her heart. "Your family?" Jake asked. "Your people?" At the word family, Zira's eyes filled with more tears. She nodded and spoke again, her voice breaking like her heart was broken too. Jake didn't know what to say. How do you comfort someone who has lost everything? He thought about his own family, his parents who died when he was young, the brother he hadn't spoken to in years. But Zira's loss was so much bigger. Her entire people might be gone. I'm sorry, Jake said. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Zira seemed to understand the feeling behind his words, even if she didn't know what they meant. She moved closer to him and put her head on his shoulder. Her skin was warm and glowing softly. They sat like that for a long time, looking at the stars together. Jake felt something change inside him. This alien girl wasn't just someone he was helping anymore. She was becoming important to him, like family. The next morning, Jake was teaching Zira more English words when Alex Chen, the ship's navigator, came running into the room. "Captain, you need to see this," Alex said, his voice excited. "Show Zira the star charts." "What?" Jake asked. "Just do it. Show her the navigation computer." Jake led Zira to the bridge, where the main computer showed a map of nearby star systems. When Zira saw it, her eyes went wide. She started pointing at different stars and speaking quickly in her language. "Watch this," Alex said. He pointed to a star that was marked as dangerous because of asteroid fields. "Zira, is this star safe?" Zira looked at the star and shook her head. Her skin flashed red, the color for danger. Then she pointed to a different route that would take them around the asteroids. "How does she know that?" Jake asked. "I think her people were natural navigators," Alex explained. "I've been testing her for 2 days. She can look at a star map and immediately know the safest routes. She can predict solar storms and find asteroid fields just by looking at the stars. Captain, she's better than our computer." Jake looked at Zira with new respect. She wasn't just a scared girl who needed protection. She had skills that could help them all. That night at dinner, Zira surprised everyone by speaking in English. "Thank you," she said clearly, looking at each person around the table. "Thank you for help me." "You're welcome," Jake said with a smile. Zira turned to him and spoke again, working hard to find the right words. "Jake." "Your guardian friend." "Guardian friend?" Jake asked. Sam looked up from his food. "That's interesting. In what I read about Lyrian culture, a guardian friend is someone who protects your family. It's the highest honor they can give to someone who isn't their own people." Jake felt proud and honored. This young alien girl who had lost everything was calling him family. "Guardian friend," Jake repeated. "I like that." Zira's skin glowed with the brightest, happiest colors Jake had ever seen from her. For the first time since he found her, she looked truly peaceful. But their peace wouldn't last long. The next morning, Kate came to Jake with bad news. "Captain, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up ships following us. 3 Korthak patrol vessels, and they're getting closer." Jake looked out at the stars and made a decision. The Korthak wanted Zira, but they would have to go through him first. He had made a promise to protect her, and Jake Morrison always kept his promises. "Set course for the asteroid belt near Titan 7, Jake ordered. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one on our terms." As the Wanderer changed course, Jake went to find Zira. She was in her room, and her skin was flashing red with fear. Somehow she knew danger was coming. "Guardian friend," she said when she saw Jake. "Korthak?" "Yes," Jake said. "But don't worry. I said I'd look after you, and I meant it." Zira took his hand with her good arm. Her skin glowed with trust and gratitude. In that moment, Jake knew that protecting this alien girl was the most important thing he would ever do. 6 months had passed since the first battle in the asteroid field. The small fleet that started with 12 ships had grown to over 50. Ships arrived almost every day. Cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining vessels, and even some military ships whose captains had disobeyed orders to join Jake's cause. The hidden base they built inside a large hollow asteroid had become like a small city. People called it Haven, and it was home to over 3,000 humans who had all chosen to protect Zira, rather than give her up to the Korthak. Jake walked through the busy corridors of Haven, watching people work together to build their new home. Engineers were installing new air recycling systems. Doctors were setting up a larger medical center. Children played in the common areas while their parents worked. In the center of Haven was Zira's workshop. It was here that the real miracle was happening. Zira had been working with human scientists to share her people's knowledge of biotechnology. The things they were creating together were amazing. "Jake, you need to see this," Dr. Rodriguez called as Jake entered the workshop. Zira was sitting at a table covered with strange glowing plants. She had grown much taller in the past months and looked more like a young adult now. Her English had become very good, though she still spoke with the musical accent of her people. "Look," Zira said, holding up a small, glowing flower. This plant can clean poison from water. My people used them on our ships. Now we can make clean water for everyone in Haven. That's incredible, Jake said. How many people could this help? If we grow enough, Dr. Rodriguez said, we could clean the water supply for an entire planet. And that's just the beginning. Show him the other one, Zira. Zira picked up a different plant that glowed with soft blue light. This one helps sick people heal faster. It makes medicine from sunlight and water. No more need for expensive drugs that some people cannot buy. Jake felt amazed and proud. Zira wasn't just the frightened girl he had found in the crashed pod anymore. She was becoming a bridge between two species, helping humans and keeping her people's knowledge alive. Guardian friend, Zira said, using the name she still called Jake. I want to show you something else. She led him to a special room where a large communication device sat humming quietly. It looked like human technology mixed with Lyrian biotech. What does it do? Jake asked. It lets me talk to other species across the galaxy. The Korthak have enslaved many different peoples, but they are all connected through thoughts and feelings like my people were. With this device I can reach them. Jake's eyes went wide. You mean there are others out there who could help us? Many others, Zira said. The Korthak Empire is big, but it is also weak. They rule through fear, but the peoples they control are ready to fight back. They just need someone to help them coordinate. That evening, Jake called a meeting of all the ship captains in Haven. The room was packed with men and women who had given up everything to protect one alien girl. Friends, Jake began, 6 months ago we came together to save Zira's life. But what we've built here has become something much bigger. He gestured to Zira, who stood beside him. She was no longer the scared child they had rescued. She stood tall and confident, her skin glowing with calm blue colors. Zira has shown us that her people's knowledge can help solve problems that hurt millions of people across the galaxy. Clean water, better medicine, new ways to grow food. We're not just protecting her anymore. We're protecting hope for a better future. Captain Murphy raised his hand. What are you saying, Jake? I'm saying that maybe we've been thinking about this wrong. We've been running and hiding from the Korthak. But what if we went on the attack? Attack? Dr. Ford asked. Jake, we have 50 ships. The Korthak have thousands. But Zira can communicate with all the species the Korthak have enslaved. If we could coordinate a rebellion across their entire empire. The room went quiet as everyone thought about what Jake was suggesting. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but it was also the only way to make sure Zira would truly be safe. How would it work? Asked Captain Sarah Bell, who commanded a fast scout ship. Zira stepped forward. Many worlds have peoples who hate the Korthak but cannot fight alone. If we help them talk to each other, help them work together, they can all rise up at the same time. The Korthak cannot fight wars on 100 worlds at once. And what about the human colonies? Captain Murphy asked. They still want us to surrender Zira. Jake smiled. Actually, that's changing. Admiral Stone has been sending us secret messages. More and more people in the Colonial Navy think we're doing the right thing. She's been quietly sending us supplies and information about Korthak ship movements. It was true. 3 days earlier, Jake had received a coded message from Admiral Stone. She couldn't openly support them, but she believed in what they were doing. Other high-ranking military officers felt the same way. There's something else, Jake continued. Zira has been teaching us how her people's biotech works. Our ships are becoming faster and stronger. Our weapons are more accurate. Our shields can take more damage. We're not the same helpless fleet we were 6 months ago. Over the next weeks, the plan began to take shape. Zira used her communication device to contact enslaved peoples on dozens of worlds. She spoke to the telepathic Mindari, who had been forced to work in Korthak mines. She reached the flying Etherans whose beautiful cities had been destroyed by Korthak war machines. She even made contact with the giant Stonekeepers, whose planet had been turned into a weapons factory. Each species had the same story. The Korthak had come to their worlds, killed anyone who resisted, and enslaved the survivors. But they all still dreamed of freedom. They are ready, Zira told Jake after a long day of communications. They have been waiting for someone to show them how to fight back together. When do we start? Jake asked. Soon, Zira said. But first there is something I must tell you. She sat down across from Jake in his small office. Her skin was glowing with serious purple colors. Guardian friend, the plan we are making is very dangerous. If it fails, the Korthak will destroy every world that joins the rebellion. Billions of people could die, Jake nodded. He had been thinking about the same thing. But if we do nothing, Zira continued, the Korthak will keep enslaving and killing. My people believed that the universe was too cruel for gentleness to survive. For most of my life I thought they were right. And now? Jake asked. Zira's skin began to glow with warm, bright colors. Now I know they were wrong. You showed me that kindness has its own kind of strength. You and your people gave up everything to protect me, even though I was a stranger. You proved that caring for others can be more powerful than fear. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. This alien girl had become like a daughter to him, and he was proud of the person she was becoming. My people's knowledge will live on through the things we build together, Zira said. But more important, your people's kindness will spread across the galaxy. When other species see what humans did for one frightened alien girl, they will know that there is still goodness in the universe. The next morning, Jake stood on the bridge of the Wanderer as it prepared to leave Haven. Around them, the rebel fleet was ready for the most dangerous mission any of them had ever attempted. They were going to attack the main Korthak supply base and signal the start of the galaxy-wide rebellion. All ships report ready, Alex said from his navigation station. Zira, are our allies ready? Jake asked. Zira stood at her communication station, her hands touching the biotech controls. Her skin was glowing with determined blue colors. All worlds are waiting for our signal, she said. When we attack the supply base, they will know it is time to fight for their freedom. Jake took a deep breath. In a few hours, they would either start the liberation of the galaxy or they would all be dead. All ships, Jake said over the fleet communication system. This is it. 6 months ago, we came together to save one life. Today, we fight to save millions. Let's show the galaxy what humans are really made of. As the rebel fleet jumped into hyperspace toward the Korthak supply base, Jake looked at Zira and smiled. She was no longer just a frightened alien girl in a harsh world. She had become the symbol of hope for every enslaved species in the galaxy. And Jake Morrison, the cargo ship captain who had promised to look after her, was about to help her change the universe. The Korthak supply base hung in space like a giant metal spider, its long arms reaching out to dozens of docking ports. Hundreds of enemy ships moved around it like angry insects. Jake had never seen so many warships in one place. Are you sure about this? Captain Murphy asked over the communication system. Jake looked at the massive enemy fleet on his screen. 50 rebel ships against 300 Korthak vessels. It should have been suicide. But Jake had learned to trust Zira's abilities over the past months. Zira, are you ready? Jake asked. Zira stood at her biotech communication station, her hands glowing as she touched the living controls. She had grown into a beautiful young woman, but Jake could still see the frightened girl he had rescued in her large, dark eyes. All allied worlds are waiting, she said in her musical voice. The moment we attack, the rebellion begins everywhere. Then let's give them the signal, Jake said. All ships attack formation. Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to start a war. The rebel fleet moved toward the supply base. The Korthak ships turned to meet them, confident that they could destroy the small human force easily. They had no idea what was about to happen. Jake, Zira said quietly, before we begin, I want you to know something. Whatever happens today, you gave me the greatest gift anyone could give. What's that? Jake asked. You taught me that I was worth protecting. When I was alone and scared, you showed me that my life had value. Because of that, I learned to value other lives too. That's why we're here today. Jake felt proud and sad at the same time. The scared alien girl he had found was gone, replaced by a leader who was about to change the galaxy. Guardian friend, Zira said, using the old name one more time. Are you ready? Ready, Jake said. The battle began like all space battles, with bright flashes of light and the roar of weapons. But this battle was different. As the rebel ships fought, Zira began to sing. It wasn't a song with words. It was pure emotion turned into sound. Through her biotech communicator, her song reached across the galaxy to every enslaved world. In that song was everything Jake had taught her about courage, kindness, and the value of protecting others. On the mining world of Kepler-7, the Mindari slaves stopped working and began to fight their guards. On the ocean planet Aquatica, the sea-dwelling deeplings rose from the underwater cities to attack Korthak ships. On the desert world of Sandros, the Stonekeepers used their giant strength to destroy weapon factories. All across the Korthak Empire, 100 different species heard Zira's song and remembered what freedom felt like. It's working, Alex shouted from his station. I'm getting reports from everywhere. The rebellion has started. But the battle at the supply base was not going well for the rebels. They were still outnumbered 6-1. The Wanderer shook as enemy weapons hit its shields. Shields down to 30%, Kate called out. The Liberty is taking heavy damage, someone reported. Jake was about to order a retreat when something impossible happened. The space around the battle began to fill with new ships. But these weren't Korthak vessels. They were ships from a dozen different species, all coming to join the fight. Guardian friend, Zira said, her face glowing with joy. Look. On the main screen, Jake could see Mindari crystal ships that moved like living things. Aetherian vessels that flew with wings of pure energy. Even massive Stonekeeper ships that looked like flying mountains. The enslaved peoples hadn't just rebelled on their planets. They had taken Korthak ships and come to help. All allied vessels, Jake said over the communication system. Welcome to the fight for freedom. The battle turned quickly after that. The Korthak had trained their slaves to use their ships, but they never expected those same slaves to use the ships against them. Within hours, the mighty supply base was destroyed, and the surviving Korthak ships were running away. But the real victory was happening across the galaxy. World after world was being liberated. The Korthak Empire, which had seemed so powerful, was falling apart as its enslaved peoples fought for their freedom. War Commander Vex Thule, the Korthak leader who had threatened the human colonies, sent one final message to Jake. You have doomed the galaxy, the alien commander said, his voice full of rage. Without order, there will be chaos. The weak will suffer. Jake looked at Zira, who was listening to the message with calm eyes. Tell him, Jake said. Zira stepped forward and spoke into the communicator. War Commander, you are wrong. Order built on cruelty is not order at all. It is just fear pretending to be strength. Today, kindness proved it is stronger than fear. The message ended, and Jake never heard from Vex Thule again. The war didn't end immediately. It took 3 more years to completely defeat the Korthak Empire. But from that day forward, the outcome was never in doubt. When people fight for their freedom instead of their masters, they are much stronger. Jake was 55 years old when the last Korthak stronghold fell. He stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, which had been converted into a mobile embassy ship. Around him, representatives from dozens of species worked together to plan a new government for their part of the galaxy. Zira, now a full adult, had become the first non-human ambassador to the Human Senate. She spent her time traveling between worlds, helping different species learn to work together. The biotechnology of her people had been shared freely, bringing clean water, better medicine, and new food sources to worlds that had never had them before. Jake, Zira said as she entered the bridge. She was preparing to leave for another diplomatic mission. I wanted to say goodbye before I go to the new Lyrian colony. Jake smiled. The new colony on the planet they called New Lyros was built for refugees from all over the galaxy. Any species that had lost their homeworld could come there to start again. Zira had designed it herself, using her people's knowledge to create a place where different species could live together in peace. How long will you be gone? Jake asked. A few months. The new arrivals need help learning to work together. Some of the rescued Korthak prisoners want to join the colony too. Jake raised his eyebrows. Former Korthak soldiers? Not all of them were evil, Zira said. Some were just following orders because they were afraid. Now that their empire is gone, they want to learn a better way to live. Jake shook his head in amazement. Only Zira would think to help their former enemies. There's something else, Zira said. The Colony Council wants to name the main city after you. They want to call it Morrison City. That's not necessary, Jake said. Yes, it is, Zira replied. Jake, you saved more than my life when you found me in that crashed pod. You saved the idea that protecting others is more important than protecting yourself. That idea spread across the galaxy and freed billions of people. 10 years later, Jake Morrison was an old man. His hair was gray and he moved more slowly than he used to. He had retired from space travel and now lived on New Lyros, where he helped teach human and alien children together. Zira, who aged more slowly than humans, still looked like a young woman. But she was now one of the most important leaders in the galaxy. The biotechnology schools she had started were on hundreds of worlds. The peace treaties she had helped write kept dozens of species from fighting each other. One evening, Jake sat in the garden outside his small house, watching the sunset paint the sky in beautiful colors. Zira came to visit him, as she did every week when she was on the planet. Guardian friend, she said, sitting beside him on the bench they had built together years ago. She still called him by the old name, though now she said it with deep love and respect. How was your week? Jake asked. Good. The new refugees from the Spiral Arm are settling in well, and the first group of students graduated from the Interspecies Medical School. Jake smiled. Your people would be proud of what you've built here. Our people, Zira corrected. Human and Lyrian together. That's what makes it special. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching alien birds that looked like flying jewels play in the trees that Earth scientists and Lyrian bioengineers had developed together. Jake, Zira said finally, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found me that day? Jake thought about it. The Korthak Empire would probably still exist. Millions of people would still be slaves. Your people's knowledge would be lost forever. I think about that too, Zira said. One human cargo ship captain decided to help a frightened alien girl, and it changed everything. Jake looked at her, this remarkable young woman who had grown from a scared refugee into a leader who brought hope to the galaxy. You know what I think? Jake said. I think everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to. You needed someone to protect you, and I needed someone to remind me what's really important in life. What's that? Zira asked. That taking care of each other is the most important thing anyone can do. Rich or poor, human or alien, it doesn't matter. We all need someone to look after us sometimes. Zira's skin glowed with the warm, happy colors that Jake remembered from their first days together on the Wanderer. Guardian friend, she said softly. Thank you for looking after me. Thank you for letting me, Jake replied. As the stars came out above New Lyros, Jake Morrison felt content. He had lived a good life. He had kept his promise to protect a frightened alien girl, and in doing so, he had helped make the galaxy a kinder place. Sometimes the most important. The message came through on all human communication channels at the same time. Jake sat in the captain's chair of the Wanderer and listened to the cold, mechanical voice speaking in broken English. People of Earth colonies, the voice said. I am War Commander Vexthol of the Korthak Empire. You have something that belongs to us. The last Lyrian female is hiding among your ships. You will surrender her to us in 7 Earth days, or we will consider this an act of war. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Around him, his crew looked scared and worried. They all knew what this meant. The Korthak Empire had thousands of warships. The human colonies had maybe 100 old patrol boats and cargo ships with weapons. Turn it off, Jake said to Alex. The message stopped, but the silence that followed was even worse. Everyone was thinking the same thing. They were all going to die for protecting one alien girl. Captain, Kate said quietly, maybe we should think about this. The Korthak could destroy every human colony in space. That's millions of people. Jake looked at her. Are you saying we should give up Zira? I'm saying maybe one life isn't worth starting a war that will kill everyone we know. Before Jake could answer, Zira walked onto the bridge. She had been learning more English every day, and Jake could see from her face that she understood what they were talking about. Her skin was glowing with sad purple colors. Zira go, she said in her careful English. Zira go to Korthak. No war for Jake people. No, Jake said firmly. You're not going anywhere. But Jake people die for Zira, she said, tears starting to form in her large eyes. Zira not worth so many deaths. Jake stood up and walked over to her. He put his hands on her shoulders and looked into her eyes. Zira, listen to me. You are worth protecting. Your life matters. We don't give up people just because it's easier. Zira's skin flashed with different colors as she tried to understand. But millions of Jake people will understand why we did this, Jake finished. Because it's the right thing to do. The next day, Jake got another message. This one was from Admiral Patricia Stone of the Human Colonial Navy. Her face appeared on the main screen and she looked tired and worried. Captain Morrison, she said, I'm sure you've heard the Korthak ultimatum. The Colonial Council has voted. We're ordering you to surrender the alien to avoid war. Jake had expected this. The Colonial Council was made up of politicians who were scared of the Korthak Empire. I'm sorry, Admiral, Jake said. I can't do that. Captain, this is bigger than one person. We're talking about the survival of the human race in space. No, Admiral. We're talking about what kind of people we want to be. Do we protect the innocent or do we throw them away when it becomes inconvenient? Admiral Stone was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward and spoke in a lower voice. Captain, between you and me, I agree with you. but my hands are tied. The order stands. You have 48 hours to comply. The message ended and Jake stared at the blank screen. His crew was looking at him, waiting for orders. So what do we do now? Lisa asked. We run, Jake said. And we find other people who think like we do. It turned out there were more people who thought like Jake than anyone expected. Within days, other ship captains were sending secret messages to the Wanderer. Captain Ryan Murphy of the destroyer Liberty was the first to openly join them. I've got kids back on Earth, Murphy said over the video link. How can I look them in the eye if I let the Korthak murder a child just to save my own skin? Dr. Helen Ford, who commanded the medical ship Mercy, was next. I became a doctor to save lives, not to hand them over to killers, she said simply. Soon, Jake found himself leading a small fleet of 12 ships. They were cargo haulers, medical ships, and a few old patrol boats. None of them were built for war, but their captains were all people who believed that protecting Zira was the right thing to do. They hid in the asteroid belt near Titan 7, using the floating rocks to hide from Korthak sensors. Jake called a meeting of all the ship captains on the Wanderer. I want everyone to know what we're up against, Jake said to the group gathered in his cargo bay. The Korthak have sent a battle fleet to hunt us down. 3 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and dozens of smaller ships. We're outnumbered and outgunned, so what's the plan? Captain Murphy asked. We keep moving, we stay hidden, and we protect Zira until we can find somewhere safe for her. And if they find us? Dr. Ford asked. Jake looked around at all the worried faces. These were good people who had risked everything to do what was right. Then we fight, he said simply. The first battle came 3 days later. The Korthak ships found them hiding near a large asteroid. Jake barely had time to warn the other ships before the enemy opened fire. All ships scatter, Jake ordered over the radio. Use the asteroids for cover. The Wanderer shook as Korthak energy weapons hit its shields. Jake could hear Lisa in the engine room shouting orders to keep the ship running. On the bridge, Alex was trying to find a path through the asteroid field that would keep them alive. Captain, Kate called from her weapons station. The Liberty is in trouble. Jake looked at the screen and saw Captain Murphy's ship surrounded by 3 Korthak destroyers. The old human ship was taking heavy damage. We have to help them, Jake said. Captain, if we leave the asteroids, they'll destroy us, Alex warned. Jake looked at Zira, who was standing near the back of the bridge. Her skin was flashing with colors he had never seen before, bright blue and white patterns that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Zira, Jake said. What are you doing? Helping, she said in English. Then she spoke in her own language, the musical words flowing like water. Suddenly, Jake felt something in his mind. It wasn't words or pictures, but feelings and ideas. He could sense where the Korthak ships were without looking at the sensors. He could feel the fear of the other human crews, and he could sense the paths through the asteroid field as clearly as if they were marked with signs. Alex, Jake said, his voice filled with wonder. Set course 127 Mark IV. Trust me. Alex looked confused but followed the order. The Wanderer flew through the asteroid field in a pattern that should have been impossible. They dodged floating rocks by inches and appeared behind the Korthak ships attacking the Liberty. All ships, Jake said over the radio, somehow knowing exactly what to say. Follow my lead. Zira is guiding us. For the next hour, the small human fleet flew like they were all connected by invisible strings. They moved together perfectly, helping each other and attacking the Korthak ships when they were weakest. Zira stood on the bridge with her eyes closed, her skin glowing brighter than Jake had ever seen. When the battle was over, the Korthak ships were running away, and not one human ship had been destroyed. How did we do that? Captain Murphy asked over the radio. Jake looked at Zira, who was now sitting in a chair looking very tired. Her skin was back to its normal soft glow. Zira connected us, Jake said. She let us share thoughts and feelings like her people do. We weren't 12 separate ships anymore. We were one fleet. Is she okay? Dr. Ford asked with concern. Jake knelt next to Zira's chair. Are you all right? Zira smiled weakly. Guardian friend safe. Zira happy. You saved us all, Jake said. Jake people saved Zira first, she replied. Now Zira saved Jake people. That night, as the fleet hid in a new asteroid field, Jake sat with Zira in the observation deck again. She was looking at the stars, but this time her skin wasn't glowing with sadness. Zira, Jake said, your people, they could do what you did today? Yes, she said. Illyrian people share thoughts, share feelings, make us stronger together. Is that why the Korthak wanted to destroy your people? Because you could fight back? Zira's skin flashed with dark colors. Korthak afraid of Lyrian power. But Lyrian people never fight, never hurt others. So Korthak kill all. Jake felt angry again. The Lyrians could have been powerful warriors, but they chose to be peaceful. The Korthak destroyed them not because they were dangerous, but because they were different. Well, Jake said, you're not alone anymore. You have us now. Zira took his hand and squeezed it gently. Guardian friend, she said. Jake teach Zira that kindness can be strong too. As Jake looked out at the stars, he knew their fight was just beginning. The Korthak wouldn't give up easily. But he also knew that they had something the enemy didn't expect. Hope, courage, and a young alien girl who could help them all be stronger together. The war for Zira's life had become something bigger. It was now a war for the idea that protecting others was worth any cost.